Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
Yesterday, obviously, the biggest news out of the end of mandatory minicamp was the injury to Juwan Johnson. And we actually have an update on that we'll get to as well. That was the negative injury news, though, for the New Orleans Saints. The positive injury news that the New Orleans Saints got on Thursday, because they did get positive injury news, deals with Chase Young. So, obviously, look, you'll remember back in March, the Saints signed Chase Young to a one-year, $13 million deal, and it was met with some pretty good fanfare. And then the next day, it came out that Chase Young needed neck surgery. And that was not met with as much fanfare. As you imagine and remember, the Saints were adamant that they knew about the procedure when they signed Chase Young, and it was fine. But what was the timeline going to be? They said, man, you hope you're going to have him available for the regular season, but he's going to probably have to miss some of training camp, things of that nature. Kind of similar to the timeline given to Juwan Johnson with the foot surgery. Like, oh, you hope to have him for the opener, at least early in the regular season, but you don't know. It's indefinite. It's very fluid, all those things. That was what it was with Chase Young, and it kind of stunk. Like, actually, no, not kind of. It stunk. Like, it stunk to get that news right after you sign a 25-year-old who was the number 2 overall pick of the draft and has all this upside, and you're looking to get younger on the defense. It was a bummer. Well, Jeremy Fowler reported earlier today that Chase Young had a checkup with neck specialist Dr. Robert Watkins this week and was given a positive report. He will he will undergo more tests in about 6 weeks, but per Jeremy Fowler, Chase Young plans to participate in training camp with the New Orleans Saints. That is a major positive. Now, obviously, look, he's got to go through the rest of those tests. He has to stay on that trajectory, the upward trajectory with the recovery and the rehab and all of that. But to get Chase Young for training camp would be a massive positive for the New Orleans Saints, and that's where he's trending. So I will kind of reiterate what I talked about when they signed Chase Young, because that was the day that I was filling in for Matt. And I get it. You look at his career, and the rookie season was great. He had 7.5 sacks and good number of TFL, all that. Like, it was good. It was something to build on. And you're like, this is going to be the guy that everybody thought it was going to be. Then the injuries happen, and, the production dips as a result. And he ends up last season in 2023 with 2 teams, with the Commanders and the 49ers. But you did see him healthy again last year. And you saw him kind of replicate his rookie season. You saw him get back to that 7.5 sack number. Would you like more? Of course. But you saw him get the production back on track. You saw him stay healthy, at least for the most part, until this neck procedure. But my thing with it always was, okay, it's not often that you can get a 25-year-old player the caliber of Chase Young with the upside, the potential of Chase Young on a one-year deal at $13 million. That doesn't happen often, where you get that guy on a, for lack of a better term, prove-it deal, where he will have opportunity to come in with the Saints and do just that. And if he does, can you lock him up longer term? Can he actually end up being the future for you at defensive end, with Cam Jordan's career winding down? And you feel good about Carl Granderson, but Isaiah Foskey didn't have a great rookie season. I mean, we all know what happened with Peyton Turner. This is a great opportunity for Chase Young and for the Saints. So to get this, I don't want to call it a clean bill of health, because it's not a clean bill of health yet, but to get this positive report on the neck procedure and him having to go under some through a few more tests, but having him for training camp, that's huge, because that strengthens your hope that you will have him for the start of the regular season and try to get a full season out of him and see if you didn't just find a guy that you want to commit to long term after this 1-year deal is up. So I'm fired up. I look at him and I still see all the potential that everyone saw when he came out of Ohio State and was the number 2 overall pick. So by all means, rooting hard for Chase Young to be a force with the New Orleans Saints and to be there for training camp, for those tests in 6 weeks to go well, and for him to really kind of hopefully revitalize a Saints pass rush that finished near the bottom of the league in sacks last year in the NFL. The update, switching gears, the update to the Juwan Johnson situation is the Saints have signed a tight end. Jesper Horsted is now a member of the New Orleans Saints. In a corresponding move, they did cut undrafted free agent wide receiver Kyle Sheets out of Slippery Rock. So Jesper Horsted, now a member of the New Orleans Saints. He was part of the trio of tight ends that worked out for the Saints this week in a mandatory minicamp. A 4-year NFL veteran, Horsted was originally signed by the Chicago Bears as an undrafted free agent out of Princeton in 2019. Spent time with Chicago, 41 games, 1 start from 2019 to 2021, and then moved on to the Raiders before he became an unrestricted free agent after this past season. In his career, he's recorded 14 receptions for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also has been a contributor on special teams with 10 tackles. Had a great career at Princeton. 4-year letterman at Princeton. Ended his collegiate career as the program's all-time leader in receptions at 196 overall and receiving touchdowns at 28. So he was a force with the ball in his hand in the Ivy League. So he has that ability. You just haven't necessarily seen it from an NFL perspective. I'll kind of reiterate a little bit what we talked about with the Saints and the tight end spot from yesterday again. Jesper Horsted, I don't know if this is a guy you really expect to make the team, but he absolutely gives you another body here in training camp. Could he, play well and end up on the practice squad? Sure, that could absolutely happen as well. But what you definitely needed was another body with Juwan Johnson. If you're looking about where the Saints actually go from here without Juwan Johnson, they hope he's ready for September 8th against the Panthers to open the season. But Foster Moreau is still on the roster. He's a guy that absolutely is a force in the blocking game, but Foster's a very underrated wide receiver. He's the most complete tight end the Saints have on the roster right now, and that's going to be the guy who obviously slides in. And then we talked about Dallin Holker, where you just have that unknown. You have that unknown there. You know what he can do with the ball in his hands, and you've seen that in mandatory minicamp and in OTAs. But until they can get pads on him, you don't necessarily know what you have as him in a blocker. But the Saints committed a lot of money to Dallin Holker for an undrafted free agent, $235,000 guaranteed to that guy. You expect him to make the team. You expect him to contribute if that's the case, especially given the success that you have seen from him. So that's 2 that you have right there. And then you have, you have your practice squad, your a couple practice squad guys as well, and then Taysom Hill. You had the options, and that's why we classified Jimmy Graham yesterday as the wild card, because Graham said, if they need me, I'll play. I'll retire when they tell me to retire. And his row across the Arctic's coming up in the summer, and then he could, right around training camp, but he could get to training camp late. Graham's a veteran, and he's familiar and all that. It made sense if that was the free agent that you would go after. In the end, it's Jesper Horsted. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to make the team, but he's definitely a body for training camp, and it allows you to take a further look even more now at what you have. And look, maybe you find something in that. Again, we went through the receiving stats in college. Guys got plenty of athleticism, plenty of ability, but feels like a camp body and feels like it allows the Saints to really go forward with what they have already in a guy like Foster Moreau, in a guy like Dallin Holker, Taysom Hill, and others there for the New Orleans Saints. So I think that's the direction that they go. I think that was the direction that they probably were going to go in general, and it looks like that's what they are doing. So Saints do sign Jesper Horsted, tight end, free agent tight end who worked out with them earlier in the week, undrafted free agent out of Princeton, spent time with the Bears and the Raiders. They cut undrafted rookie Kyle Sheets, wide receiver, out of Slippery Rock.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.